Okay, hello. So I want to give you a real life scenario. Let me turn this here. Okay, so I'm going to give you a real life scenario about how to land new business. And this specifically has to do with developing builder. It's my builder and my developers. So I have kind of a 4-step process in order to kind of pitch them to get them to make moves a little bit. So let me give you the scenario and I'm going to give you the 4-step process. And you can use this 4-step process on every process on every single person, every client. This 4-step process works for everyone. I'm going to stop saying process because it doesn't work very well. Okay, so here we go. So the scenario was on about 4 days ago, I got a message request from my builder and he was asking about a property that he wanted to look at to flip. So I became curious, was the first thing, because he's a builder. And so I was wondering why he was looking at flipping property. So anyway, looked into flipping the property. It's not going to work for him. So I said, and in this situation, we have 2 developers and then they support the builder. So I got all of them on a group text and I said, what's the plan? And that caused them to question what the plan even was. And they said, that's a good question. Why don't we all get on a phone call and then we can discuss what the plan is? And I said, okay, great. So we set that up, had that call this morning. And so this is 3 days later. Get on the phone call and I said, okay, tell me what we're looking for. Are we looking for flips? Are we trying to develop? Do we want lots? I need to understand what I'm looking for so that I can help you the best way possible. So they said, whatever makes us money. We all need to make money. You need to make money. We need to make money. Whatever makes us money. I said, okay, but what would we rather do? What areas do we want to be in? So here's the first step to this process, okay? Hopefully this isn't backwards. So the first thing is, I was interested. You have to be interested. So if I just answered the phone call, they wanted to flip a house, if I just serve the thing that they're asking me for, then it stops right there. Can you see how that could happen? So if they just said, hey, we want to look at this house for flipping, and then we show them the house for flipping, and then they're not interested in flipping the house because it doesn't fit their budget, and then I was like, okay, have a wonderful Christmas and go on your merry way, I wouldn't be doing the next step, which is number 1. So I have to be interested in what's going on with them. And then I have to ask questions. I call these qualifying questions, but I need to ask questions because I am seeking to understand what's their goal. Okay? What's their goal? What do they want to do with their money? How would they like to invest it? So I can understand, how do I make that happen for them? So in asking those qualifying questions, I am looking to understand the goal. Okay. And I know this seems like, Lisa, this is simple. It is simple. But we generally don't go through this process where we're really legit, okay, what's your goal? Okay, I need to now understand why this is the goal. Is this a good fit for you? Sometimes I'll push back and I'll ask some questions to them. So in this scenario, the builder had been looking at some other lots that we'd done some recon on in a different city. And I said, well, what happened with those lots? And they said, well, that fell apart. And I said, oh, what happened? And he said, well, I called and left him a message and I haven't heard back from him. And I said, oh, so are you going to call and follow up? And he had just literally left it. Okay, remember that. I said, are you going to call and follow up? And he's like, well, I guess I could. I'm assuming he's busy, but he hadn't called and follow up. So today, well, let me get to step 4 first, then I'll tell you what happened. So you have to help them develop their vision. So in challenging them a little bit and saying, what do you want? Why do you want it? Where do you want it? I gave him some other options of cities. What's your drive time? Where would you rather develop or build? What's the plan? What price point do you want to be in? So we kind of threw around some scenarios, some situations, some questions there. I started to help them with those questions develop their vision. So it's them now starting to understand, what do they want and why do they want it and why do they want it there and what's actually the best fit for them. Okay. So remember that question I asked, which is, why didn't you call and follow up? Or are you going to call and follow up? So I get a phone call. That meeting was this morning at 9:30 a.m. my time. And by 4:30 p.m. today, I got a text message from the developer who said, looks like we're buying 27 lots. Get ready. We're going to close next week. And I was like, okay, game on. This was literally the 27 lots that we had originally talked about in Emmett, but we talked about those a few months ago, and then they just hadn't got the deal done. So what's so interesting about this to me is I left them for the last 2 months. I didn't push or ask questions about why they hadn't secured those lots. Today, when we had the conversation and I said, why, what's going on with those lots? And then why haven't we checked back in with the lots? And he just said he hadn't followed back up. Well, another piece to this, you guys, is I said to them, I had 3 other houses for sale in that same city, in that same subdivision. And I just said, I know what the traffic is. We could sell build jobs in there this fast. So you wouldn't have to build specs. And I gave them all the positives. So essentially I told them we could sell pre-builds. So you'd be able to close faster, turn your money faster. And I know that the demand is there because we've had these other 3 houses up for sale in there. So I saw the traffic that came through. I saw the questions. I saw what people wanted differently than the houses that they were looking at. And there were no other options. So you could be the option now. So this is a great investment. Why aren't we going for that investment? Instead of trying to look somewhere else to try to find a different investment. And they were like, oh, well, yeah, because they hadn't called us back. Well, then why don't you call them? Right? Now, some people might think that's rude, but when you get in with builders, developers, people that are decision makers, people that are movers and shakers is the way we usually describe them. When you start working with those people, they like that direct. They like to say, have you say, this is what we can do. This is why we can do it. How about this? Why don't you think about this? They like the input. It's kind of like a little mastermind phone call that we tend to have every once in a while. And then we'll sit and I'll say, okay, tell me what's going on. What do you want? And what are we looking at? And, we'll kind of collaborate together. So I do that with all my builders, the other ones that I work with. So in the future, I'm going to be teaching you a builder class very specifically, but this is just a really good insight to a process and the process that I use to be able to get them to come to an understanding about what they really want, to really have that realization and help them to start make movement. So now we're picking up 27 lots and they let me charge them a good commission, and that's going to be a ton of business for 2024, which is amazing, right? So my question for you, and text me back, is what do you feel like, what would prohibit you from doing what I just did? What would prohibit, what's the thing that scares you, or what would stop you from taking that same action that I just took today? What would stop you from taking the action? Okay. So message me back and let's keep this conversation going. All right.